Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with you on All Angles. I'm Dion Jax Miller. Lots of talk since the leaking of the voice notes out of a WhatsApp group with PNP members in which the people speaking were heard speaking about NaRRA, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, as well as its CEO. So a lot of people are saying, what's the PNP's position on this officially? Mark Golding, PNP president, spoke about the issue on Sunday after the meeting of the National Executive Council. Take a look.
Firstly, the conversation in which those leaked recordings took place did not happen in any official party forum. Secondly, no party officer, no officer of the party participated in that discussion, has no official NEC or executive WhatsApp group. That doesn't exist. This was a WhatsApp group formed by individuals within the party, and the views expressed were their personal views. The PNP takes responsibility for its official positions.
Okay, and just to remind you in terms of the content of those voice notes, why people were concerned, the conversation suggested there were suggestions about what sounded like a possible undermining of the authority. Also, a suggestion that local government authorities, municipal corporations would have, if given the chance, delayed or dropped projects that would be implemented. And also there had been a conversation about the CEO of NaRRA saying that because of his background, he didn't have a lot of blemishes. It would be hard to attach him to anything corrupt. So lots of concern about the tone and tenor of the conversation. But how has the reaction been to those statements by the PNP president? Joining us, we have debaters Ronaldina McLean as well as Joshua Atkins. Great to have you both on. Thank you so much for coming in. And Ronaldina, let me start with you. So first of all, were the contents of the voice notes a problem, you think?
Absolutely.
Why?
So on the leaked voice notes that we heard from two alleged members of the PNP's National Executive Council, we heard general approach to parish council dealings with the government being one where maybe they would have been engaging in delay tactics. I think that's not appropriate for parish councillors to take that kind of approach to public administration. Similarly, the other female voice heard in those voice notes speaking about the character and reputation of NaRRA CEO Major General Anderson, saying it's not one that's easy to attach corruption allegations to, and so perhaps suggesting that they would have to engage in some kind of smear campaign to sully the reputation of the man. I think that's not good politics either. If we have a civil servant who has dedicated so much of his life to service and is serving well, I think we should encourage rather than try to tear down the reputation of such a person.
Joshua, did you have an issue with the notes?
So yes, I did have an issue, particularly as it relates to what NaRRA is constructed or exists and intends to do through its existence. I think the vast majority of concerns that well-thinking Jamaicans have in respect to the centralization of power or the limited oversight that comes with its existence are concerns that existed outside of, for example, its intended outcomes and objectives, right? Which is to speed up the process of reconstruction, right? To give relief to the Jamaicans who have been affected by Hurricane Melissa. And I think what was problematic was the particular concern related to the success of this type of legislation and how it might be used for political clout in respect to the JLP. And so I thought that was a betrayal of the conscience of well-thinking Jamaicans, the vast majority who care about the people who have been affected by Hurricane Melissa. And so I thought I just don't think it was appropriate in the first place, those sort of sentiments.
So having said that now, do you think Mark Golding adequately addressed the concerns that both of you have raised and that many other people have been raising?
So no, I don't think Importantly, first talk about the response, right? First response is that this didn't take place in any official manner, right? I don't think that is enough of a response, particularly because it assumes that party politics and the policies that comes necessarily have to flow from an official manner, which it's just not true, right? Because informal conversations can guide how we intend to do certain things as a party, right? So I just don't think that response was adequate. And then the response in respect to who are the persons who are involved, saying that these aren't officers. Ronaldinho pointed out yesterday that officers, according to their own constitution, refers to the executive members of the party and not and doesn't include specifically like, you know, other members of the party who also maintain a sort of influence. So those things are problematic, and it wasn't frontally responded to by Mark Golding.
Yeah, I think the response failed to denounce or condemn the statements that we heard in the voice notes. The opposition leader tried to say that these aren't necessarily official PNP policy, but that doesn't tell us whether or not these statements did in fact shape PNP policy. It didn't tell us whether those statements shaped the PNP's response, for example, to Anthony Anderson's appointment as CEO of NaRRA, where it raised questions about whether the fair process was followed in his appointment. It didn't tell us whether this reflects the general approach of the PNP at the parish council level. And I think it was misleading to say that because these aren't necessarily officers of the party, which is just a few people in the constitution of the PNP, or wasn't an official group chat, that we shouldn't be concerned, that we have nothing to worry about here, when the sentiments underlying these voice notes are so severe and such a slap in the face, I feel, to Jamaicans who are reeling from the impact of Melissa still, and Jamaicans, well-thinking Jamaicans who have legitimate concerns about NaRRA.
I got a number of responses from people saying, "Una overreact." People they never said nothing, was all that bad one are going about.
Well, I don't appreciate that kind of...
Both of them read just now, but...
I don't appreciate that kind of comment, because if we're talking about people who are charged, elected representatives, one report has it, this is alleged, that one of the people in the voice notes is an elected representative, elected by the people, talking about using delay tactics for political purposes, especially in the aftermath of a hurricane. I don't think that that's respectful to the people who elected them to serve. I also think that we have a responsibility to ensure that if parties are seeking to be placed in a position of power, that they are true to their word. So if we have a party that's constantly talking about integrity and accountability, then we deserve to understand, we deserve to know, what is your position? Who are the people in these voice notes? What were the conversations that were had with them? It's not enough to say, mind your own business.
Joshua, you look like you were itching to comment on that as well. So the question is, just to remind everybody, what are guns about? People are asking.
So, first of all, as Ronaldinho said, it's concerning that the normalcy with which these sentiments were expressed, that they can probably do delay tactics in respect to like the parish council, effectively utilizing local government as a way to one up or score on the ruling party currently. I think it's distasteful, the extent to which any politician, any person with influence, political influence, to say that they will be using systems to delay the implementation of a law that was passed. One, I just don't think it shows respect for the systems that we have currently. But two, I think it shows the extent to which any party values human life and the average experience of Jamaicans, whether they value our opinions, whether they value the fact that we are suffering or not, right? I think those things are placed lesser on the hierarchy through that voice note, and political clout and success being what is, championed more so.
The suggestion at PNP press conference yesterday was that, these voice notes were taken out of context, that there were other voices in the group and those weren't shared, and this was some kind of deliberate attempt to skew people's perception. And the implication clearly would be that you guys have bought into that.
If this was taken out of context, then it's the responsibility of the people with the context to come out and clarify. Say, here was the context of those messages. Instead, what we've seen is a kind of caginess around this issue and a refusal to engage with people who are asking valid questions. I mean, you might say that we are distracted, but I think the actual deeper distraction that happens here is that there were legitimate concerns being raised about NaRRA. For example, the accountability mechanism set up in the bill, but beyond that, also the extent of its reach to the average person, the extent of relief involved, versus NaRRA being used as a kind of cloud for all kinds of infrastructure bills. I think that those were some valid concerns that were raised in the parliament, including by members of the People's National Party, that now we are less able to talk about because we have a voice note of high-ranking members of the People's National Party, allegedly, telling us that we're going to slow down NaRRA in such and such, kind of outrageous way. I think that's the bigger distraction, and I think that we're having that conversation is due to those members of the People's National Party and entering into that kind of conversation.
The suggestion that they would have if
they would have if they could engage in delay tactics, or even that they thought it's a good idea to go the route of smearing the CEO of NaRRA as opposed to bringing the legitimate issues to the fore.
And I think that begs the larger question: what is truly happening behind closed doors when politicians meet up, when people with influence meet up to determine the party politics? What truly is happening behind these doors, right? It brings into focus whether there have been in the past these sort of tactics carried out, and the Jamaican public just doesn't know.
I tell you what, I'm nearly out of time. Let me ask you finally though, is this a 9-day wonder, or does it affect the PNP going forward? Quick comment, please.
I don't know realistically if it will. I don't know that the PNP will face any kind of long-term, punishment for this. I think at best, the JLP will continue to bring this up once NaRRA begins to actually do its work, to kind of blanket any kind of opposition to NaRRA's work as the PNP engaging in either smear campaigns against NaRRA and its CEO, or in delay tactics and obstructionist work. And maybe if NaRRA is successful, then the people will look at that and punish the PNP for it.
I think on a more separate point, because I agree with Ronaldinho, I think right now we have, a high rate of voter apathy, and people think our political system is a sham.
Okay.
And I think those sentiments, those voice notes really would fuel that sort of cultural bias that people have against
I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you right there because we are entirely out of time. Thanks so much to our guests. Thanks as